let's just jump straight in.
Sure.
So what sort of products and services does your business offer, and what sort of why does it exist?
That's a good question. First of all, I would like to, thank you for having this opportunity to tell my story and to promote and tell about my business. I've been following you guys for quite a while. I mean, I've seen your posts on LinkedIn, on social media in generally. I've seen your guests. They're really, really, really fantastic guests you've had. So you could say it's an honor to be one of the guests. Going into my business, so we're basically, just to put it in a simple term, we're a software development agency. What we do is we do programming for our clients, mainly large programming projects, not like small WordPress sites or anything like that, but those kinds of projects that require quite a lot of know-how, knowledge about your industry and whatnot. So yeah, I like to usually say it in a couple of words, like, hey, yeah, we do programming for our clients, and that of course includes everything for building integrations between different softwares, between different CRMs, ERPs. It depends on the client so much. We do open source development for our clients. We do their own, we develop their platforms. So it's pretty much from quite various, from side to side. But in a recent edition, we've had so I think the exciting part about our company is that we have this we have roles from typical who do marketing. For example, we have an art director, we do have a copywriter. We actually have 2 art directors and 1 copywriter, and you would probably see these roles in a typical agency that does marketing for clients. So we've had this, I value marketing above everything else. I think marketing and building brand, and I like to call it, doing propaganda for our business. We're thinking that we're like a media business, not like an IT business. So we have that approach to our business. So, and because of that, we do have some some marketing services as well, but we don't promote that. More or less 95% of our income comes from different software development projects that vary from size. I mean, we had a client from day one. I think we started 2018 in the middle of November. I still remember the date. It was 19th of November 2018. And then we had our first client, and we're still working with that client. So we have bigger clients, we have some smaller clients, and pretty much everything in between. I hope that was clear enough.
Absolutely. So I've obviously done a little bit of research and found out you sort of, similarly to me actually, I had a freelance social media thing going on for a while. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. Sort of, how did that lead on? That you obviously mentioned with the marketing, which might give it away a bit, but how did you go from social media to software development? Because to some that might seem quite the jump.
Yeah, that's actually quite an interesting story. So we probably should go back a bit to year 2014, 2015. We were doing it was a school project back when me and my co-founder Sami Suoheikki were back in school. We had this one school project that we had to develop an application that identifies dyslexia or shows symptoms of dyslexia. So yeah, we did that, and we attended a kind of like a competition between the universities here in Turku. There was Åbo Academy, Turku University of Applied Sciences, and of course University of Turku. So we kind of won that with the dyslexia web application thing. I mean, we managed to pitch it really well. And after that, we went to Boost Turku, which is a local accelerator here in Turku. We attended their accelerator program called Startup Journey with the same idea, but as it wasn't like our calling to develop, that product. So after a couple of years, I think it was around 2017, we just dropped it. And during that time, I was following this one social media influencer called Ty Lopez. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but quite a lot of people are. So I fell fully into his marketing, you could say. And I bought his social media marketing agency course. I think it was back in 2016, 2017. And I learned social media from that. And since I already had a company set up, I was like, I was on my summer vacation. I was like, hey, I want to learn a new skill. I'm going to go through that course. and get me some clients. I was working a day job at Vadin that time. I was like, yeah, let's do that for, because I paid for the course. I think it was thousand euros or something like that. I learned how to do social media. I mean, social media marketing was pretty much, just starting back in 2016, 2017. That's hard to imagine right now, but it was like it was at such a beginning stage at that point. So I managed to, get a couple of clients. I did that. I think I was earning like 1,500 euros per month, like extra on top of my day job, which is kind of good, But I stashed it all in my company, and during the same time, my co-founder Sami Suaheki, who has been part of this journey as well, he did some freelance software development, for his clients. So we just pulled the money into our company. We did go out to, for a couple of drinks, and we took out ate some good food at some time, but we never took any salary or anything. And well, during that phase, we watched I always tell this as a joke, but it's truth. We watched quite a lot of motivational videos by Arnold Schwarzenegger, David Goggins, these big shots, Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, you name them, Gary Vaynerchuk. We watched too many of those videos, and we're like, hey, well, we've had some success, and clients were like asking us, hey, can you do some bigger projects for us? And we're like, well, we kind of want to try this entrepreneurship thing out a bit. I mean, we didn't have any kids, we didn't have any mortgages, we were young. I mean, we're still young, but anyway, so it was like quite like a risk-free thing. And we decided we should go with software development, since our background is more or less in IT. And we were like, hey, let's try this one out, since we both had the ambition to try it out, and we would have regretted it had we not tried it out, if when we were old, if we didn't try it out. So we're like, hey, let's try it out for 1 year, for 2 years. But before we jump into, full-time entrepreneurship, we managed to get a client that paid us really, really well. And we jumped, to a full-time entrepreneurship when we had the big client. So I think, the people talk about, entrepreneurs taking huge risks or whatnot. But actually, we did not take any risk. We had a big client. We had stashed, we did freelancing for almost 1.5 years. We didn't pay ourselves any salary. We just, stashed the money there. So it was like completely risk-free. And even if we failed, it was no problem to get a job again. And our previous workplaces were like, hey, if it doesn't work out, you're always free to come back.
Wow, I mean, sounds like quite the dream scenario, through no short hard work of your own to get there, obviously. But...
yeah, of course, but we did have quite a lot of luck on our side. But it was, of course, quite a lot of work as well, since we didn't have that much of network or anything. I mean, we did have some, because we were working for like 4 years in the IT industry, but we're still young. We didn't know pretty much anyone, so we kind of had to grind it all out by ourselves.
It sounds like it was a relatively smooth sort of transition, but were there any difficulties, challenges? There's obviously always something, right?
Yeah, there was like some, of course. It's a different story, I would say, to run a business than being an employee. But we started out, me and Sami, we hired one of our good friends almost immediately. So we did the company for like I think it was for 6 months by just the three of us, and then we hired our first outside of the friendship group, if you could say, an employee. I mean, of course, we've had some not problems, but of course, when you grow, there's certain things you have to learn, and this was my first time being a leader. Actually, I've never quite I didn't see myself as a leader or anything like that. I've never led a team. I've never had, people working for me. So that's been a huge growth place for me. But I wouldn't say I don't say we had any big problems or anything like that. I would say we had challenges, like where we want to take the company, how much do we pay our employees? We want to pay them really well, even though we are a small business. Okay, we have to bill a certain amount, we have to have the cash flow in place. I think those are the challenges we had, but like bigger problems, no. Of course, now we have soon 17 employees working, for us. So that's been a huge thing for me to learn, how to lead a team, how to lead people.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because I feel like to some, leadership comes quite naturally and they quite enjoy it, whereas it sounds like it was quite a learning experience.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, those who follow me on LinkedIn and other social media know that my principles for leadership or leading people comes pretty much from Gary Vaynerchuk. His theses and his his way of doing things. So I quite learned from him how to lead, actually. And then of course I just learned, bought courses. I read quite a lot of books, and I was always hands-on. So when you're constantly learning and when you have to do something, you quite actually well learn it. I mean, I know that sounds silly, like, hey, when you study and you do something, you actually learn stuff. So that's basically been my thing. But I don't know, maybe it was just too much motivational videos that, because from day one I was like, okay, hey, if I'm the CEO, I have to be a leader, at some point. So I think it kind of grew onto me. I don't say I was a natural leader at any point. I think I just kind of grew into it, and I just studied people who I respected and I just mirrored them. Of course I do leadership in my own style, but I learned quite a lot from them.
I mean, that's quite an important trait, I would say, in a leader, the ability to know your weaknesses and know your strengths.
Yeah, and just to point out real quick, like where I've been working in IT quite a lot, and there's this the management style in IT is like there's no hierarchies or anything like that. Like everybody does their own thing. Everybody has 110% trust immediately when they enter the company. So I just use those kinds of principles with mine. Like when I hire somebody, I trust them 110%. I pay them well. I trust them. I trust that they do the correct things. I trust that their intent is good. And you know what? It works. If you treat people well, if you trust them, they're gonna do great work for you. Who would have guessed?
So already going on to the next sort of bit there with the sort of insights and things you've learned from coming to where you are now. Leadership is would you say the biggest lesson you've learned, or is there sort of
yeah, definitely
something? Yeah,
I think it's leader. Like I kind of had to become a leader, because I had this title of a CEO. I mean, we had to put somebody had to have the CEO title when you make the company. So I was the unfortunate, however you want to see it.
I think it's a matter of opinion. I think some people would love it, but yeah.
But yeah, like if we check like 2018 November we started, and by the end of year 2019 we had 7 people. Then 2020 we had 15 people. Soon we have 17 people. So that's been, and this has all been organic growth. Like we didn't take any investments from anybody. Of course, we did actually give some shares of the company to our employees, but I think that's a different story in itself. Like it's all been organic. We have no outside people in our board or anything like that. Like we control it. Like the founders control it. The employees control our company totally. I think I'm just a good listener, and I react to things. I think that's it, and I lead by example, and I give trust to our employees. I trust them fully. I know that everybody has good intent. So I mean, that's good enough for me. And if there's some problems, we react to it immediately. I mean, yeah, and that's pretty much it. I'm always accessible. They can come to me at any time. I don't think it's like stranger than that. Like it's pretty simple. We've kept it simple in our company, and that's been working so far. But of course, say we double our growth when we're like 30, 34 or 40 people. Of course, I'm not sure. Am I going to be a good leader then? I don't know. Like I might be a good leader till we have 55 people, but when 56 people or when we are 60 or 70 or 100, that may break the camel's back, and then I need a pro CEO in parentheses, or somebody. But you don't know. Like I've learned so far, and I think I'm positive enough that I'm going to learn it in the future as well.
I mean, again, it seems to be sort of just ticking off all the questions I've got written down to be asking already. But
we can freestyle. We can freestyle the other part.
Yeah. But it seems like with challenges, the smaller ones that you faced, or with the strategy you seem to be having is sort of honesty, openness. Would you say?
Yeah. And responsibility, of course. Like everybody's responsible for their work. And well, like I said, like if you give 110% trust to your employees, you pay them well, you take good care of them, you give them, like for example, we do have this career paths that okay, at this point I'm gonna get a salary increase. And I say this quite a lot, I'm the most communistic capitalist, because I like to give a lot to my employees. I think my employees deserve success. I mean, success in in materialistic way. Like, I want to give them a lot of money. I want to give them a lot of opportunity. I want them to have the beachside property, to have the yachts, to have the Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Rolexes and whatnot. So yeah, I think and when I come from that place, I think quite a lot of things, and this is me humble bragging, quite a lot of things fall into place, because my intent is good. Of course, I want to have the financial and materialistic success as well, but that's not why I went into this journey. It was just something that I felt I had to do.
As you say, it's sort of somewhat of an oddity to treat employees with such generosity. So why would you say that you do? Well, what's your personal motivation for, arguably you could pay employees less even?
Yeah, but I think I learned this from Gary Vaynerchuk as well. I think he said that he wrote in a book or said in a podcast or in a video, like the employees care, as much as you pay them or how much equity you give them. For example, if there's somebody, like if you're an employee at a company, you can't expect him to care about the company as much as the founder who has like 50% of the company. Give him 50% and I bet he will care a lot more about the company. So I'm coming from that place. And he said that, okay, always overpay a little, rather overpay a little, so that they get a good feeling out of it. Of course, I don't know how well this is going to scale at, when we're like 500, if we ever get to that scale. I think I'm not to go too much into politics, but like I said, I'm the most communistic and capitalistic at the same time. I think that the employees are the ones who built the company. So I think it's just natural for them to get a piece of the pie as well.
So when you've been sort of growing, and as you said, you started at certain level in 2019 and then jumped up a whole bunch to 2020. Some might worry that growing too quickly could cause some issues, but would you say that you've just grown as needs demand, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I think the biggest turning point was 2020 when the year started. We got a new shareholder into our company, Julius Rajala, who was a really experienced person with developing culture and how to take care of your developers. So we took him as one of the majority shareholders into our company, and I think that played a huge part in our growth, because he knows how to build a good culture. He knows how to build a good, I mean, since we do employ developers mostly, he knows how to build developer culture. He knows how to structure the payment systems, how to pay them, what kind of ladders for them. So he took care of all of that. So I think that played a huge part in our company's growth, and he of course took quite a lot of responsibility for that. So in that sense, I think we grew actually quite slowish, you could say. And like I said, it's all been organic. Like, we always had the money to do it. We never had I always take calculated risks. I always take risks that never take me out of business. That's my mantra. Those kinds of risks I take. Like, most people say that entrepreneurs are big risk takers. I say it's actually quite the opposite when you get to know, or if you become one. We're actually really, really risk averse. It's just there's this perception of entrepreneurs taking risks, but I'm gonna say, like, no, we don't take. I mean, of course, once in a while somebody takes a huge risk, but most of the time entrepreneurs don't take huge risks. They take calculated risks. And if they fail, it's not a big deal.
So is that some advice you'd pass on to other people looking to become entrepreneurs? Take risks, but risks that won't put you out of business.
Yeah, exactly. That's the gist of it, to be honest. And well, while we are on this topic as well, I don't recommend everybody to become an entrepreneur. Actually, it's hard. Like, of course, I've had sleepless nights. I've had stress. Sometimes a bit more, sometimes less, since like I said, like, some projects go through, some don't. It's quite stressful in the end. Like, even though things are going very well for us, it's just natural that you worry about things all the time. But if you have this feeling that, hey, I could become an entrepreneur, then go, yeah, sure, like, everybody should try out if they want to, but don't get fooled by Instagram, popping champagnes and Rolexes and Lamborghinis and Ferraris and private jets. I think that's BS, to be honest. Like if you want to become an entrepreneur because of the money, I think you have the wrong motives. We became entrepreneurs because we wanted to try it out, not because we would have regretted it if we did not try it out. But of course, we didn't have any ego in it. If we failed, we would have been quite okay with us getting bankrupt, us people talking behind our backs like, hey, those guys, they didn't make it, they thought they were the hot stuff. My ego was perfectly fine with people talking behind my back if I failed. So I think that's another tip for entrepreneurs. Like, just leave your ego aside if you fail, or I mean, you have to come to terms with it if you fail, because if you're just banging it out on the social media like, yeah, I'm the greatest entrepreneur ever, and then you don't succeed, it's a it's a bad, you might get depressed. There's some darker sides to entrepreneurship, when people fail. Like, there's depression, there's anxiety, and all this kind of bad stuff, which they don't teach, when people fail, because most people see the 1%, at the top, the Elon Musks, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the $10 billion evaluations and whatnot. But that's not the reality. That's like the 1% who do that. To humble brag, we do have some natural talent for it, clearly, because our, the results speak for themselves to a certain point. But it is really hard. Like, you have to sell, like, that's most important. You have to market, how you're going to compete against bigger people, how you're going to deal with personnel problems, and then just the general anxiety of how things are going. You have to work longer hours, your spouse, your significant other might not see you as much. It's hard. It's a hard job. When they say it's lonely at the top, I'm starting to get it.
So is there any other advice, any sort of specifically maybe for software development and that sort of thing?
I always give this tip to all entrepreneurs, like, just sell, just get customers and sell. Don't care about value propositions or anything like building your company. Just sell. Like, cash cures quite a lot of things, to be honest. It's much easier to deal with problems when you have cash in the bank. Quite a lot of people like say that, hey, validate your idea first, yada yada yada. But I think if you try to sell your stuff, your product, your service, that covers it all. I don't know if it's the best advice. I mean, that's how we started. I'm always telling, like, hey, don't take my opinions or tips as absolute truth. It's just something that works for me, for us. This is not advice that works for everybody. It's just what worked for us.
Do you just think every entrepreneur should always focus how much percent on marketing, on getting those customers in, on getting
as much as humanly possible? That's the answer. Like, as much as your bank account, or of course it depends on the context, like what kind of a business are you running. For example, we are doing, like I said, okay, so last year we did almost 1 million turnover. We're a small company. We had 15 people. Out of those 15 people, 3 people were in marketing. I see people, I see IT companies that have 100, 200, 500 people. They have 5 people in marketing or less. That's how much I value marketing. That's much how we value, social media being at the forefront of this. Like today morning, afternoon, sorry, not morning, we had a Clubhouse session. We're always, checking what new social media things we can do. And that's the one reason, like, why I think we've been successful. Like, when I entered, I always joke with my friends that that IT, what we're doing, software development, is in parentheses, it's the easy mode entrepreneurship, we say, because the contracts are big, the money is good. So in that sense, IT entrepreneurship is easy, in my opinion. That's what we joke, at least. So yeah, like back to the marketing thing, like, we should be running more ads on different digital platforms, and we're doing that. But we have 3 full-time content creators creating content, doing the media thing. I think what you guys are doing at Entrepreneurs of Finland, we're striving to become that. Like I said, like, we're becoming a publisher, a media agency. So yeah, how much should you spend on marketing? As much as humanly possible, depending on your context, is my answer. And I don't even think we spend that much. I think we should spend 10 times more than we're spending right now.
I think I'd have to do the exact maths in my head, but I think half of our team at Entrepreneurs of Finland in total, the full team, is in marketing. To be fair, so
Yeah.
I again
Yeah,
agree with you.
yeah, but that I think that's where this, the world is heading. Like, how do you protect against anything? You build a great brand. That's all I'm focusing on right now, is building a great brand. That's it. Of course there's nuances to that. There's quite a lot of things, you have to advertise so you get the clients. I follow Gary Vaynerchuk in this as well. You jab or you right hook. Right hook is when you make an ad that says, hey, buy my software development services. Jabs are when we make a blog posts about this talk, for example, or we make a blog post about one of our persons, or we make quote pictures out of things I've said and give that context. That's jabbing. And once in a while, when we have a free developer, I might throw a hard right, and say that, hey, we have a developer right now. LinkedIn, I need your help. Give me some good contacts, and people usually come because we give them value. We do the long form content thing.
Wow, fair enough. Now for the slightly more, you could argue, intimate part, the less
Sure.
the less businessy stuff, the more personal things. And it's one which is always quite a revealing question, I feel, which is more sort of how is sort of the things you experienced when you were a kid, sort of upbringing, parents, the lessons you learned, that sort of things. How would you say that those have influenced the person or the entrepreneur that you've become now?
Well, that's actually a good question, and I think my answer is kind of boring, to be honest. I would say not that much. Like, to be honest, like every mindset and thing. Of course, my mother raised me really well. I mean, just to give a bit of context on my background, like both of my parents came from Soviet Union to Finland when it crashed. I think it was 91. I was born in Finland in 92, so just a bit later than the Soviet Union. So we were like immigrants, to Finland. So of course that already gave me the chip on the shoulder because we didn't have that much, when I was young, to be honest. Like, okay, I did have a roof over my head, we did have some food, but like I didn't have any allowances. If I wanted, something, I needed to buy it myself. I needed, because like this is one thing, like so I know this wasn't legal at the time, and probably it's still not legal. It gets good when people started like this.
Good. You're onto a good story when they said this might not be legal.
Yeah,
you're onto something good there.
Yeah, so people know that. So of course our family did visit Russia quite often, and they did bring some cigarettes from there. And like when I was a young kid, I was selling cookies door to door. I was selling cigarettes to people, like they were adults. Of course I didn't sell, like I do have some morals, like I didn't sell cigarettes to young people. I was selling people. I just observed on my own home field, like who smokes, and I'm like, hey, I have some smokes, like, want to buy? And of course, when you get them from Russia, it's much cheaper. I can sell them much cheaper. So I mean, yeah, that's how I started. But like I said, quite a lot of things, like I've been influenced by the social media, like the Gary Vaynerchuk, the Grant Cardones, and of course I've read a lot of books. Like if you can see the bookshelf behind me, that's just one part of the books I have. I think it was like back in 2013 when I started this self-development journey, if you could say. But yeah, like I said, my mother raised me well. I had a good brother. They taught me good things, but more or less like this entrepreneurial leadership style, I just learned on myself or from other mentors, pretty much. Like I had a really basic youth. Like I didn't do anything special. I stopped selling cigarettes. I went to school. I got my degree. I played World of Warcraft. I was actually quite a big nerd, to be honest. Like I was a huge nerd, to be honest. I was a big nerd.
Oh no, exactly the same. I think I played World of Warcraft since about the age of 12, to be fair. So
yeah. It's a great game. Yeah, it's a great game. I mean, I always joke, because the culture has shifted, that these days it's quite cool to be good at video games. But when we were young, it was definitely not cool, But back then I was doing really well in World of Warcraft. I would have probably been the king alpha at school if I was like, right now, if I was the same gamer, dude, I was like,
Can't help
I
but
was
feel the
owning
same way.
noobs. Yeah, I was owning noobs. Like if you own noobs in Fortnite these days, you're like one of the cool kids.
Mm.
It wasn't that 10, 15 years ago.
I mean, well, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah,
Would have
it's a
been good.
shame, but hey, we gotta work with what we have, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that the childhood. I mean, maybe once you stopped selling the cigarettes, maybe after that it didn't have much of an influence. But that's quite a measure of independence and quite a entrepreneurial thing to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
At
And
what age was it as well?
I think it was just preschool actually, or like first grade or something. So that's actually a really good question. Like when I became an entrepreneur, I started, thinking about these things. And I noticed that, hey, yeah, I did have some entrepreneurial tendencies, but it just, came to me like 1.5 years ago. And that's when we go back to my family history, our family history is actually quite interesting. Like from my father's side of the family, they were originally from like Sweden, Finnish, like on the border in the northern Finland. But they moved to America. I think it was in 1800s or something. But they had a small shop in there. They went there. But the funny thing is that they migrated from US to Soviet Union. So they were one of those people who migrated from US to Soviet Union back in like 1930 or something. So, and of course, after that, everything related to entrepreneurship and capitalism was like suffocated totally. So, I think for me, those genes kind of, grew up because they had a shop in US back in like the start of 1900s. So, I think we've always had some entrepreneurial genes in our family history, and they just, came to me now. And thank God I live in Finland, in a capitalistic environment. Okay, some might say it's too socialist, but the gist that I can create my own business, I can go after my dreams, and it's a free country, in that sense.
You mentioned earlier that your mantra or the motto, it might seem like common sense when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
That don't take risks. Take risks, but don't take risks that
Yeah, take calculated risks. I think that was the way I put it.
Yeah, but how yeah, common sense when you say it out loud, but how it's obviously something you've got to have.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason why you hold that so dearly.
Yeah, I mean, like, because when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have to, in a capitalistic environment, in entrepreneurship, you kind of have to beat other people, So to beat other people, you have to take risks, So, and how you take those risks and what kind of risks, I think that's up to you. For example, of course, it was a huge risk hiring full-time in-house marketers to a company that's just started out. That's a risk, But like I said, I ran the numbers. We were still making quite a hefty profit. And I think this was the future of where everything should be going. And I had a co-founder that believed in me. He didn't, believe in the idea. He was like, no, you just get developers, you sell them to projects, you hire more sales guys, and on we go. But he gave me the freedom, to try this media thing, this marketing thing, and let's say it's worked out really, really well. But yeah, like I said, it's just I just watch the numbers. If they work out, it's okay. Like, of course, like I value, good feelings, and I always say that at the beginning of the company, the kumbaya feeling is the most important thing. Like everybody feels that there's a good kumbaya feeling in the company, but underneath all of that, I'm still quite, like I said, I'm capitalistic and communistic at the same time, and socialist at the same time. I'm really heavily into sales. I sell a lot. I watch the numbers every day. I watch every day how much back money do we have, how much longer do we have, our runway, are the people billings, what their billing rates are, and whatnot. So in a sense, I'm like really strict, but not strict at the same time. It's a bit nuanced, you could say. And and I think that's what makes entrepreneurship quite hard. Like you tell people that, like you have to be really, really kumbaya, and at the same time you have to be really, really tough. Okay, how do you do that? Well, that's why it's hard.
Now, for those that might not quite understand, what do you mean by like a kumbaya spirit or kumbaya attitude?
Yeah, kumbaya is like everybody's feeling good, chill vibes. Everybody's having, it's having a good feeling, But of course, when you're a company, you still have to hit certain numbers. You have to have sales, you have to have marketing, etc. So that's why and like I said, that's pulling from two opposite directions.
Quite clearly, to me at least, it seems like that self-education, learning are sort of the fundamentals that you've used in particular.
Yeah.
In whatever, to learn to be a leader, to learn how to do marketing, to learn social media, to learn how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
There's a lot more of to use a word which I think might be a bit confusing, some deference towards other people, sort of deferring, sort of like you're aware that you might not know how to be a leader, so then you're looking, how do I be a leader?
Exactly.
How do I do that?
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. We can touch that real quick. Like I don't consider myself a smart person or anything. I'm just pretty much these mentors that I talked about, they say things, I do what they say, and then stuff works out. Of course, I have my own insights and my own ideas and everything, but I don't consider myself smart at any stage, to be honest. It feels sometimes I feel like I'm just copying what they're doing and it's working. I'm like, why is this working so well? Like, this is not that hard, like if you just listen to them, you do what they say, like even if you do like 30% of what they do, you're still gonna get like great results. And I feel like that. I don't feel like an imposter per se, but it's like, hey, Gary says that you should focus on marketing by hiring these persons and doing these kinds of things. Then I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then I'm gonna go and do it, and then it works. And I'm like, and then people are like, oh my god, Joonas, you're so smart. I'm like, yeah, sure.
I think I've asked everything I can think of, but I'm happy to carry on a conversation.
I think we covered quite a lot of things here, actually.
Yeah, lovely to have you.
Thanks once again. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been good.